Manuel Nava Leal. Leal.
Leal, Manuel Nava Leal.
Yeah.
Okay, and
I used Nava to honor my mom.
oh, really?
That was her maiden name.
Oh, okay.
And the because she had a second grade education only in Mexico.
Uh-huh.
When she was here, married my dad, and my older sisters and I were born, she gave us her maiden name. All three of us, all the oldest kids. So there were six of us, but
Yeah.
the three oldest ones, she named us all Nava in the middle, right? Like, because she didn't know that they didn't do that here in the States.
Right, right.
It was something that was customary in Mexico, I suppose. But anyway, she did that, and so we all have that name. And I used to only use the initial, but I thought, no, I want to honor my mom.
Hey guys, I'm Frank, and we're here with Manuel Nava Leal, our guest for tonight. Thanks for joining me, Manuel.
Thank you for the invitation. I'm honored.
Yeah, I'm honored to have you.
And I'm happy to see you after, what, 15 years?
I know, it's been a while. Has it been that long?
Yeah.
15 years?
Yes, sir.
Wow.
Isn't that amazing?
Because it was at the networking events where we would see each other.
Yeah.
Wasn't the last time at the ranch, at a ranch?
No.
No?
No, the last time was when you had an office off of
Dallas.
Dallas.
Downtown.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
You came to that office?
Yeah, you invited me.
Oh, okay. That was in 2011. So
Oh, well, then it hasn't been 15 years, but it's close.
it was about like 12.
Yeah.
That's still a long time. Yeah, that's close.
Definitely.
Well, there's a lot of interesting things that we were, to set up the topics, a lot of things, interesting things you were sharing with me, and that you've written your own books,
Yes.
right? So you're a
I'm
writer,
I'm an author.
an author,
Self-published.
self-published author.
Right.
And what type of books do you write?
Well, I write, I've written romance, romantic poems. One of the first books that was actually published, it's called, oh my gosh, I forgot the name of the title of my own book. Can you imagine that? Beautiful Heart, a collection of romantic poetry. Beautiful Heart.
Oh, that's nice.
And every time that I had readings that I was invited to, all the ladies wanted me to read from that book. So it was popular the first time.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, but I've written several now, and these the latest ones are Blue Agave Imaginings, which is a book of short stories, which is my favorite thing to do. I'd love to write short stories.
That's this book, Blue Agave Imaginings. And if somebody wants to buy this book?
They can order them through lulu.com.
Okay.
Search by title or author name.
Okay.
Or you can purchase them from me.
And how many books have you written?
These are my 8th and 9th books.
These are your latest ones?
Yes.
So which one's...
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to ask you, which one is your most recent of the two?
They both were published in the same period.
Oh, really?
Same time frame. I got Ancient Jaguar Child, which is a book of poetry.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, the Blue Agave Imagines is short stories. Okay. But they were both published in 2020.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I've got another book coming, but I don't have a title for it yet.
Yeah. Oh, cool.
Because I continue to write. I'm always writing.
You're already writing it?
Oh yeah, I've written. It's just it's poetry. It'll be poetry.
Yeah.
And some short stories as well. And I'm not sure if I should do two separate books again, one separating the short stories from poetry, or combine them to see how that works.
Yeah.
Right.
So what kind of poems are they?
Yeah, I write about everything. I write current events, things that are happening in my life, memories. I love to go back to my childhood upbringing.
Yeah.
In the Valley. I'm from Harlingen originally, Harlingen, Texas, and I like to talk about those times because they were very. It was a pivotal time in my life. I English is my second language. We spoke Spanish at home, and it was a difficult transition to go to school and learn English. Thankfully, my sisters, I have two older sisters, one by a year, another by 3, who helped me, to learn English, speak English. Plus, my dad, he made it a point to tell us that once we started school, when we spoke to him it would only be in English. We could speak in Spanish to my mom, but to him, we had to speak in English.
That's how he wanted you to learn.
Exactly.
How you learned English.
Yes, and that's how he was verifying, right, that we were learning.
Right.
You know? So that was an interesting way to learn, right?
Yes. And how long did it? How many years were you speaking Spanish before you learned English?
Well, from the moment I could speak, I guess, until I was about 5 or 6.
Really? So
Yeah,
it
went
was
to
a while.
kindergarten. Yeah, went to kindergarten speaking very little English,
Uh-huh.
and I picked up. I picked it up. I picked it up so well that now I have difficulty speaking Spanish.
Yeah.
I speak it still. I speak it well, but I'm more confident speaking in English.
Yeah.
When I'm talking to people.
So you think and dream in English now?
Actually, a combination.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I've had some dreams where everything's in Spanish.
For those who may not have participated in a book reading, I've been to the poem readings.
Yes,
that
right.
that was about the 12 years ago also.
Right.
And I think you were reading, the way that works is you're reading a poem.
Yeah.
And so is a book reading, like there's some short stories in here. Are you reading the whole?
From the book. Yeah,
From the book.
Yeah.
So that literally it's a book reading as you're reading the book.
Exactly.
Do you read the
Reading
whole
from
thing?
the book. No, we don't read the entire book. Typically, what I do is, like in San Antonio, I read 2 short stories. And then when I say short stories, they're only 2, 3, 4 pages long. And there are a couple of stories in there that have chapters, right? The chapters are like half of a page or a page. I
Yeah.
love to see that response from people.
Yeah.
I like to surprise them.
Yeah. Must
I
be a
like-
good feeling.
Yeah, because it's the unexpected.
Mm-hmm.
When it catches you, there's
Yeah.
something about it, that it moves you, not just psychologically but physiologically. Just people feel this sense of, humanity. In some cases, can't take credit. I don't want to take credit for what has come through me. And I feel sometimes that there's an outside source that is just feeding me some of this information, and I just write. And again, I'm just as surprised with the endings as anyone who's listening, right?
Oh, yeah?
Or who reads, right?
Do you surprise yourself when you're writing? Like,
Yeah.
how does it come? How does it come to mind? Like when you're writing it, what is it that I'm going to change it here, or it just comes to life, or how does it work?
Automatically. It just automatically comes. In some cases, I'll already have a pre-idea of how I'm going to end it. But as I'm getting closer to the ending, something just naturally pops up.
Veers course.
Yeah, and it changes. Yeah, it changes the direction, and beautifully, I may say, because it's unintentional.
Yeah.
And sometimes it just happens.
Yeah.
In some cases, and there are others. Yes, that of course I already know what the ending is. Sometimes I start the story with the ending. This one is called Success at Life. In my 6th decade, I've yet to define what I have become. Closer to my true destiny, not having earned my wings, if you will. Thankfully, no horns and pointed tail. Always at the edge of my seat, anticipating without planning, nowhere to go beyond my world, anxiously wanting to get somewhere, pleasing others before myself, a way of life. Constantly forsaking myself, afraid to be disliked, or even worse, forgotten. Never quite completing a task before beginning another. Doomed attempts at starting afresh. Projecting negative results. Disappointing those I love. Causing pain where none was due. Forging tears rather than smiles. Growing old, disgusted, and lonely. Afraid of being disregarded, or even worse, discarded. Before I find myself entombed, I pray to find a peace, and with it, success at life.
That's
Thank
great.
you.
That's great.
Thank you.
And it's your feelings and your thoughts, your art embodied on paper. I mean, it's definitely an artwork.
Thank you. Thank you.
And you've been doing this for how long? Did you say?
I've been before I could even write, I was creating stories
Yeah.
and entertaining my family, first of all, my sisters, and then neighbors would come over, and my sisters and I would do plays for them. We'd act out scenes from Tarzan movies and all kinds of stuff, right? And I had an epiphany once where I was telling the story about a little bunny, and we're all kids. Everybody's enjoying this story. The little bunny's having fun and enjoying itself. And then I turn it around, and they're all excited and laughing. I'm making them laugh. It's it's a little comedic piece as well. But and a thought just came to my mind. I said, "Wow, I'm making them laugh, and they're laughing so hard that they're crying. I wonder if I can make them cry for real." And so I changed the story and made it a little darker with the bunny dying. And all these kids started crying. My sisters, everyone, you killed a rabbit, you killed a bunny. And it was just so fascinating to me that it made me realize, wow, I can tell a story.
Yeah, you can have this impact on people.
Yeah, it was just so amazing, to see the reactions, and that there was this. I don't want to call it power, just this energy to affect their emotions, right? And
Through storytelling.
yeah, and from that moment on, I said to myself, I want to do this. This is what I want to do from now on. I want to be able to write, to entertain. And
When did you say that was?
I was about 8 years old.
8 years
8 years old.
Wow.
Yeah, when that happened.
Yeah.
But I'd already been telling stories, like I said, before I
You got
knew how to
started
write.
young.
Yeah.
You were so
And
young.
I say it's a gift from God. I can't take credit for that either.
Yeah.
I don't want to take credit for that. I really believe, like they say in Spanish, es un don, which means it's a gift from God.
Yeah.
And it's a talent that God's given me. And for years, I used to bother my teachers and everyone. I want to be an author. I want to write. I want to be an author. Can you help me? What do I do? And no one ever helped. No one. I was so angry for years as a kid, because no one would help me. And it took a while for me to realize, well, it's not that they can't, they don't want to help me. They can't help me. They don't know what to do.
Yeah.
Right? And no adult would ever say, I don't know how to help you.
Because they weren't authors.
Not only that, they're adults. And adults don't want to say, I can't do this. I don't know how to do that, especially to a kid, right?
Yeah.
So it took me years to realize that it was, again, that they just didn't know what to do, and they couldn't say, I don't know.
Yeah.
Right. But again, I felt like maybe they could have directed me one way or another. But all I did was read voraciously. I read the classics when I was a kid, before I even knew that there were requirements in high school and junior high and college. I was reading these intense books.
Yeah.
Because they fascinated me, the way the authors manipulated words and phrases and
Do you still read a lot?
yeah. I
Fiction?
everything, fiction, nonfiction. I read everything. I read everything from science fiction to science. True science. It's the curiosity that I've had since I was tiny. I always questioned everything, to the point where my mother would say, "All right, enough. Enough with the questions. Why are you always asking these questions? And when I couldn't do that with my mom, I would leave the house. I would be gone all day, and I would meet adults everywhere, and I would be talking. I would tell stories to these adults. Some of them would just looking at me and just like, "Hey kid, where are you from? Where'd you come from? How do you do this? Why are you doing this?" But it was interesting because my curiosity always led me to these places. I would walk into shops. Part of it was I was also looking to bring income into the house. We were poor, and I found that if I could knock on a door and say, "Hey, let me clean the bathroom. Let me sweep the floors some way, to earn some money." I would do more than what I would say. Like if I walked into a wood shop and I said, "Let me sweep the floor for you, get the sawdust out of the way for you," for 10 cents or 25 cents, whatever. They say, okay. But then I would purposely start cleaning tables, cleaning the windows and stuff like that. And, hey, kid, I'm not going to pay you more than 25 cents, or what we agreed on. I'm not asking you to do these things, right?
Yeah.
And it's okay. It's okay. I'm enjoying it. I love to see people working. Pardon me. I love to see people working. I like to see what they were doing. I was always curious about it. And I would always, and this is the fascinating thing. The owners, if they were there, or the managers, I would ask them, what got you into this? What made you get into woodworking, for example, or furniture making or upholstering? I would always ask everyone. I walked into the very first print shop in the Valley that had bought a Xerox machine that had the vinyl cover with a little aluminum square handle where you would pick it up and you would put the paper on there. And you'd sit there and watch it run for 5 minutes before you got a copy. Yeah.
Wow.
I walked into this. It was just serendipity. I just walked into this little shop, and the salesman was there. They just bought it. And
what year was that? Do you remember?
It was in the 60s.
Oh, in the 60s?
Yeah, when Xerox first started.
Yeah.
And coincidentally, my brother-in-law, who's retired from Xerox, started working for Xerox. And it was just so amazing when he told me that he was been hired at Xerox when I was a teenager. I said, "Whoa, wait, are you talking about the company that makes the copies?" He said, "Yeah," because it was a very unusual name, Xerox. Right? Yeah. I walked into this little shop in the Valley in Harlingen, and I started asking questions, because in school, the teachers would ask us to use a mimeograph machine to make copies, and they were instant. They were, constantly making
what's a
the mimeograph machine.
It's
a duplicator.
Okay.
It's what it's doing is you have this little what they call a plate, and you hang it onto the duplicator, and you add ink to it, and you're just cranking the copies out, right? You add paper, and you just start cranking.
That's how you would make copies back then?
That's how they made
in
copies.
the 60s?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, 50s, 60s, 40s, 50s. Yeah.
Wow.
And so I was familiar with a mimeograph, right? And when I saw this copier, I mean, we're all standing there, and they're all fascinated watching it, And I'm thinking to myself, wow, I could have already made 500 copies, in the first 2 minutes, right? That's my little mind. That's what I was thinking, right? And so I asked. I said, well, what's taking so long? And the man looked at me like, get the hell out of here. And the manager, the owner who just bought this, Xerox copier, he looks at me and he looks at the machine, looks at me, looks at the machine. And he's like, did I make the right choice? It's like I could read that thought.
Because a mimeograph was faster than the Xerox.
Of course.
Really?
Yeah.
So then what was the purpose of those new Xerox? Was it
It was a new venture, first of all. It was a new venture. And they were pushing this idea that you didn't have to use all this ink and it's just a toner now. It was a powder, and it would adhere to the page, and it was just new. A new science, a new thing. It was a console, and it was made of wood, and it had wooden legs, like the old TV consoles, from 50s and 60s. It was a big wooden box, basically, and it had all the workings in it, and it had a glass plate on the top, and it had this vinyl cover that they would move the cover out of the way, put the piece of paper on there, and then cover it and turn it on. And like I said, it was just fascinating. Everybody standing there with their arms crossed, watching this thing take forever.
5 minutes.
Now they do, thousands
of
of copies real quick.
Yeah,
both sides even.
Was that printing company was that a young printing company?
It was a small mom and pop store.
Okay.
It was a corner shop, and like I said, I only found it because I saw all these people around this console. And I was wondering, I thought it was a TV, from looking at it from the side, from outside, being outside and seeing, the side of the console. But then they weren't in the front looking at it, they were looking at the top. And I thought, what is this? This is curious. And like I said, I was always walking into all kinds of businesses and asking questions. And, this is what I would do. I would ask these adults, how did you get into this, and what attracted you to this? I mean, I was like a little cub reporter, just asking questions just to, fulfill my curiosity. And the fascinating thing was that once I got them to speak about themselves, they would just go off and just tell me all these things. And I'm a little kid, you know, I'm just sitting there. But I was fascinated with what they were telling me.
Yeah.
And it was fodder for my future writings, right? Because
Yeah.
now I can actually make characters seem real to people because I'm adding so much to the character, you know, and because they're short stories, I can do that really quickly. You know, I
Yeah.
can make them realize, oh, this is an office manager, and this is his personality. This is a characteristic. How many people do you know that have been in management? Pardon me, who you can say, oh, I know their behaviors already. I already know how they're going to behave
Right.
during work. How are they going to respond to me as a worker?
Yeah.
And so when I picked up all this information, you know, I
Yeah.
just kept storing all this information. Again, just my curiosity wouldn't allow me to stop.
All from going into businesses and
Yeah.
asking them to clean because you needed the money.
We needed the money.
Because you were poor.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
25 cents. What'd you do with all that money?
I gave it to my mom.
Really?
Yeah, this is what I did.
What was 25 cents like back then?
Oh my
like
gosh, you could
today.
buy two handfuls, two fistfuls of candy. You know,
Really?
Yeah. If you're a kid, what are you going to do?
What about-
You're going to go for small toys, or you're going to go for candy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, something to entertain yourself or make yourself happy. But I had made, I told my mom, and I was a little kid. I don't even remember how old I was. I could say an age, but I'd be guessing. I told my mom, you know, I'm going to start working, you know, to bring money home. But I want, for every dime I give you, I want a penny. Didn't realize that I was getting, you know, a percentage, you know, like what, 1% or 10%,
yeah,
you know, or
yeah.
whatever it was, right?
Yeah.
And so my mom said, "Oh no, son, you're going to give it all to me." And I said, "Well, it's either this, or I don't work and you get nothing." And she said, "Okay, you get 10%." Right? So I started bringing money. And sometimes my mom would ask me, you know, how do you have so much? Because I would walk in sometimes with a $5 bill or a $10 bill. And the first question out of her mouth, you know, who did you steal that from? And that used to anger me so much because I'm working for this. I told you I was going to work, you know, and I'm doing that. And I did all kinds of things. I would clean the insides of semi-trucks. The guys would park in a cafeteria to go get something to eat or whatever, or stop at the gas station, you know, refuel. And I would tell the guys, you know, hey, let me clean your cab. Let me clean your cab, man, you know, for $1. I said, yeah. You know, knock yourself out. So I jump in there and I'm looking at everything. Again, that curiosity. I'm looking at the panels and how fascinating it was to see all this equipment, to see, you know, these trucks, man. I
Yeah.
was just familiar with little personal
Oh,
car
yeah.
my dad had.
Trucks are fun
But
for
you walk
kids.
in there and it's like, oh
Yeah.
my God, look at all these knobs, look at all
It's
these
like
handles, you know, it's
heaven for a
fascinating.
little boy. Yeah.
So I would clean their cabs and, you know,
And you
I'd
get
say,
$1 for that?
sometimes they'd give me $5.
Really?
Yeah.
When you would get 25 cents for cleaning a store?
Yeah, whatever. You
Yeah,
know,
that's-
I just would want to get my foot in the door. You know, so I cheapen myself, my services. You know, I'd say, hey, you know, I'll you know, sweep and mop the floors for $0.25.
Yeah.
And they say, yeah. And like I said, I would do more.
Yeah.
You know, and some of them would get angry, and I didn't ask you to do that. You know, get away from that table. You know, I'll organize it my own way. You know, things like that. You know, but this is the beautiful thing of it. That and these were adult men. I mean, you know, my age now, I would say. You know, they'd show this anger, but then they would show compassion because I would be waiting for my quarter, and they'd give me $4. Or they'd give me $1, or they'd give me
Really?
$5. Yeah, because they were happy to see a kid who's doing more than what he was hired for,
Yeah.
what you agreed on, and it made them feel happy, like they were really helping me, you know. And I had people ask me, you know, why do you do this? You know, what do you get out of this? 25 cents. That's what I'm getting out of, you know,
Yeah.
my dime. Give me a dime, you know.
Yeah.
And I would tell them, you know, I'm bringing home, you know, I'm bringing the money home.
Yeah.
And I remember the very first time that a man gave me $5, and all I was asking for was $0.25. You know, just give me the $0.25. You know, this guy says, I don't have $0.25, and I thought, oh no, I just did all this work for nothing,
Yeah.
right? And I was just about to start screaming at him. And then I thought, no, you know what? I felt hurt.
Yeah.
And so I started to turn away. And he said, wait. I said, I don't have a quarter. But here. And he gives me $5.
How much work? You said
I swept the floors and mopped the floors.
How long did it take you?
Yeah, it doesn't take very long. You know, it's small shops,
Yeah.
you know, little shops. But because I had told him that I was bringing money home, he gave me this $5 bill.
Wow.
And man, I started crying. I didn't know how to react. I started crying. I'd never seen someone be so, not just compassionate, but so giving.
Generous.
You know, $5, man. A little kid with a $5 bill, man, that's dangerous. You know, I'd run to the store and buy me some stuff.
With the 1960s,
yeah,
it's
yeah. I mean, and
today, it's
no, it's nothing now.
Bubblegum.
Yeah, I know. True. So it made me curious about people and emotions because I started seeing people in a different way. I was, not that I was ever judging or anything like that. It was just I didn't know people. I didn't know characteristics of people. But all of these people, man, they were generous.
Wow.
They were generous. And like I said, I mean, that first $5 bill, when I was so excited, I ran home. You know, I didn't even want to do any more work that day. I want to go home, you know, and show this to my mom. First thing out of her mouth is, where'd you steal that? I said, oh, man, it was so disheartening. You know, it hurt me, you know. And I wanted to tell her the whole story, how all this happened and the compassion in this man's heart. But I kept it to myself, you know, I kept it to myself. And I told her, I earned it, you know,
that I'm really grateful you shared that story with me. I love that story.
Oh, thank you.
That's such a good story.
Oh man, I got an even better one that'll shock you. And I've written this as a short story. I call it Silver Dollar.
It's in one of your books?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. It's in a short story book that I have published several years ago. Anyway, I started picking cotton. A friend of mine, same name, Manuel, lived across the street from us.
When you were a kid?
When I was a kid, yeah. I was 11 years old.
Okay.
And he tells me, hey, Manuel, you want to go with me picking cotton this weekend? And well, I didn't know. I said, yeah, okay. You know, how much do they pay you? I said, it depends on how much work you do. I said, okay. So I'm a hard worker, man. In my mind, I already know I'm a hard worker. I'm going to do what I can. So I didn't realize it was so horrible how it was, you know,
It's
horrendous,
tough.
man. It was horrendous. Let me tell you what, when you first start picking cotton out of those little bowls, they have 4 little points, and they're like needles, right? And if you don't grab that cotton properly, they'll jab you. Not only will they jab you, they will stab you.
Really?
Yeah, and it takes some getting used to.
Yeah.
It takes, you know.
I know my parents did that.
Oh, okay.
And
All
they
right.
told me that they would come home with cuts
Yeah.
all the time, my mom and dad, because they were poor when they were kids.
Yeah, well, you have to survive, right?
Yeah.
And anyway, Manuel didn't last that day. I mean, halfway through it, he went and lay down under the trailer, and he didn't want to do anymore.
He
I
didn't
just
like
kept
it.
going. Yeah, I just kept going. I was bleeding profusely. Believe me, every time I grabbed the cotton, I was soaking it with blood, right?
Yeah.
But hey, cotton's cotton. They're going to wash it, they're going to clean it, whatever. Right?
Yeah.
Boil it, whatever. Anyway, I couldn't convince myself to stop. I said, no, you know, I've got to do this. I got to do this.
Yeah.
And so I didn't tell my mom or my dad or anybody what I was doing. I got home, and my hands, no kidding, man, my fingers were swollen like wieners, like hot dogs, and things were
Really?
swollen and encrusted with blood, and still some blood pouring, you know.
That happens.
So I went home like this, and I didn't tell my mom. I went to bed, and my mom screamed at the top of her lungs in the morning when she saw all the blood on my pillows and the sheets. And she said, what happened? You know what?
She was concerned about the sheets, like they ruined her, or like she was scared.
It was the blood scared her,
Oh.
right? But she was wondering what the hell happened, right?
Yeah.
So I showed her my hands, and she said, "What did you do?" And I told her I went to pick cotton, and this was a Saturday, right? So Saturday, Sunday morning, I had to get up early to go do it again, right? Because a truck would come by, honk the horn, and you had to run and get in the truck. And if you didn't do it really quickly, you'd take off.
You'd miss the day.
You'd miss it. Yeah.
You couldn't get there
No,
on your own.
no, because we didn't know where we were going to go.
Oh.
Every day is different fields or whatever.
Really?
Right? Yeah, and not just in Harlingen, but San Benito, Westlook, whatever. Go all over the place.
So then they were
Mercedes.
picking up kids too.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, kids, adults.
Because you weren't with your parents. Your parents didn't know
No, my
about
parents
it.
didn't even know. And so anyway, by the end of the week, I had told my sister, as a matter of fact, my oldest sister, she was always really good to me, always has been. I told her we had been to a little 10-cent store, a little nickel and dime store, and she saw a doll, and she said, "Oh, I want that doll! I want that doll!" And in my little mind, I said, "I'm going to get her for her," right? And I did. That's the first thing I did with a little bit of money I got. But let me tell you what happened. And the reason I call it silver dollar is because the truck driver who was our boss, el jefe, man, I'd seen this guy when he'd have an argument with an adult. Like I saw this man all day. He just kept bitching and bitching and complaining and complaining and complaining. And the jefe was just watching him, big heavy set guy, big belly, big belly, and with his cowboy hat and mean look in his face, right? And he's listening to this guy bitching and complaining. And the guy had, the adults had 100-pound sacks, and that they drug behind him, filling it up. And then they'd have to pick it up and load it into a trailer. And you have to climb up these steps and unload it, and start again. And then the kids, we all had little 5-pound sacks, right?
Yeah.
Because we got to start somewhere.
Like a little basket.
Yeah, no, it was bags. It was,
Oh, they were bags.
Yeah, little
Okay.
linen bags. And so anyway, this man was climbing up to dump the cotton into the trailer.
The one that's bitching.
That was bitching and complaining. And the jefe had just had enough. That's it. He grabbed that guy by the leg, dropped him to the ground.
Really?
Boom! That scared the hell out of me and everybody else, man. Everybody scattered, right? Let's get away from him. And he didn't beat the guy after that, but he told the guy, "You're going to have to walk home.
Really?
You're walking home." And the guy screamed, "I don't know how to get home. I don't know what to do." And the guy, "That's your problem. That's your problem."
What would he complain about? What was he
Oh,
complaining?
whatever. You're not paying us enough. The little things.
Yeah.
Whatever. It was just.
So
much.
many Hispanic Americans or Hispanics have. So many Hispanics have worked in the cotton fields.
Oh, yeah.
Have stories of working in the cotton fields and have gone on to have success stories or have done great things.
Sure.
My parents, I used to love. That's why I love your story, Don Manuel, because my parents used to tell me their stories.
Yeah.
And I would love to hear them
Oh,
because
yeah.
they would tell me about. I love to hear them in my mind now in retrospect. But when I was a teenager,
You
I was
didn't want
like,
to hear it. Yeah. Oh, God.
you
Here we
gotta
go
tell me
again.
about how your shoes wore out and you had holes in them, Dad. I know. I was 13 years
Yeah,
old.
yeah, of course.
I
You
heard
don't
the
wanna hear
story
that.
5 times. I already have it memorized.
Yeah.
I know you were picking cotton. They didn't want me to tell people because my parents had become they'd become comfortable,
Better off.
yeah, better off,
yeah.
and they appreciated nicer things, and they told me their stories, and they said, like, don't
Don't go around
telling
something
people.
you don't talk about,
And I was
yeah.
like, why? Because I was a kid. Why?
Yeah.
Well, because son,
They're going to look down on us, man.
yeah, but that's probably
Yeah.
why I look down on us. We don't want people to know that we were picking cotton.
Yeah.
And
That we were poor at one point.
yeah, but I thought I was proud.
Yeah.
I was like, I thought to myself, you guys were picking cotton, and now you're
seeing
doing
it from
these things.
a different perspective now because you're older. In 2020, I published these books, and I also published an anthology of pandemic poetry.
About the pandemic.
Okay.
about
about the pandemic. I put out a call. The same lady that I've been mentoring called me on a Sunday morning. I'm sick in bed, with COVID. And she calls me early in the morning. I'm thinking, why are you calling me so early, right?
Yeah.
And she said, "Hey, Manuel, I've got this idea." She said, with the COVID, like it's going, the pandemic and stuff. She said, I wrote a poem about it. and I think other people want to write. And all of a sudden it woke me up. I said, yeah, you're right. That's a great idea. Okay. I said, let me get up and I'll call you back. Well, she read her poem, and I said, yeah, that's a great poem to start out with, right? And so I put out a call that same day. I just put out a call, sent it out to everybody I could reach, and said, I'm going to publish an anthology of pandemic poetry. Whatever experiences you've had, write them in a poetic form, a poetic way. And if you need some guidance, let me know if you're interested in doing this. We started local here in Houston, and then it spread throughout the U.S.
Really?
I started getting poems from California, from New York. Then all of a sudden, it was international. We got poetry from Mexico, got one from Cuba, got a couple from Spain, got 5 from England. I mean, it just spread like crazy. And within a month, I had all of these poems. And I did some editing on some. But it was just fascinating that, everyone has, their opinions about what's going on. And a lot of them were really heart-wrenching. I lost my son. I lost my mom, my dad, whatever. There was everything you can imagine. Happy poems about pandemic. I'm not working. I'm having a good time at home. That kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
It's so great to work from home now and not have to go to work,
I hear
So that changed. Look at our culture now. It changed because of the pandemic, right? But anyway, it didn't take very long. I gathered all of it and created the pandemic poetry anthology, and published it the same year, 2020. And then
That's already out.
oh, it's out. Yeah, it's out. And what I did is to introduce it to the public. I asked everyone that was local who had submitted to come join me at a place and read their own work. Now, these are people, the majority of these people had never even written anything, and not only had they not written, but they never even thought about reading it in public, right?
Yeah.
So
That can be nerve-wracking for some people.
it was scary. And we had a nice turnout. We had several people show up to read their stuff, and we had a little 8-year-old girl that read her poem. And her parents were so excited for her. They were so happy, that, oh, look at my daughter. She's published, So, but anyway, we had such great poems, in that book, in that anthology. And the idea was to raise funds and then do a scholarship. But unfortunately, we didn't have many sales. The people who bought were the ones that knew each other, or family. Like what's typical.
It's still available on Lulu.com?
Oh, yeah, it's still available on Lulu.com. Still there. But it was just fascinating that all of these books came out in 2020, right in the middle of the pandemic when I'm sick with it.
Yeah.
And it was devastating, man. My girlfriend had it for 8 weeks. At one point, she asked me, she said, you know what? Call for an ambulance. I need to go to the hospital. And I said, I'm not going to call an ambulance because if I do, I don't think I'll ever see you again. And I said, so no, if you want to call them, you go right ahead, but I'm not going to do it. And as a matter of fact, you can go stand outside and wait for them. I'm going to close the door. That's it. You're not going to come back.
Why is it that you think they wouldn't come back? Is it because
people were dying in hospitals, being intubated? Yeah.
Because of the treatments.
Because of the treatments they were receiving.
They were either not the correct treatments, obviously, because so many people were dying.
Right.
Or they were
there were so many people too. There were so many people that couldn't get to everyone.
Yeah.
Right? And
they couldn't get to anyone. Yeah, so they were being neglected. Maybe not on purpose, but
no,
like you said,
I don't think it was done on purpose. But these doctors and hospitals were being paid for each person that was intubated.
I heard that. It's something like 50,000 as well.
Oh, I'm not sure it was that high.
No.
But any amount of money.
Yeah.
What does that do?
Incentivizes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It incentivizes them, and then they neglect to do
the right thing.
Yeah. So who are they going to choose? They're picking and choosing who's going to live and who's going to die.
Yeah. But the part of the issue was that they're intubating them, and that was causing
killing them.
It was killing them.
Yeah.
Because they were intubating them.
Exactly.
And so it wasn't necessarily the COVID. It was,
no, they were already weak from the COVID.
They were weak.
This makes them even more.
This just pushed them
susceptible.
over.
Yeah. And it created chaos. A lot of people were dying because of it. But the poetry itself is so moving because they were speaking from their heart. Speaking from the heart. And again, I'd say that more than 90% had never written a poem. And
this must be a very powerful book. The whole book is about poems from people.
It's all it is.
I mean,
personal experiences, or their ideas.
That must be very powerful stories to read
It
because
is,
it's their stories.
It is, and the further we get away from 2020, the more interesting these stories become.
Yeah.
Because there's some depth to them that you just didn't relate to at the time. You were going through your own experiences. The thing about it is this. It makes you realize how truly connected we are as human beings. How we are all collectively going through so many experiences that we think they're just personal to us, but they're not. And these are stories that relate worldwide, to all cultures and all races and all peoples. I mean, it's just, it's a time in our history that we went through and are still going through today. People are still dying from COVID. It's just not
I think
as
it's
prevalent.
like what now is it like COVID? The different strains.
Yeah, I know how many strains.
Strains,
How many strains have we
something
gone
like
through?
that. Yeah.
A century from now, people are going to be talking about this, and analyzing it and realizing the mistakes that happened and the good positive things that happened with it as well.
Yeah.
I mean, this little book, this pandemic poetry anthology, I mean, maybe someday someone in the future will look at it and say, oh my gosh, this is fascinating.
Yeah.
This is straight out of the mouths of the people that went through it,
And regardless of any of those debates that we just talked about,
right? These are personal.
That book is about their suffering.
Exactly, their personal suffering.
Their personal suffering,
and everyone that was affected by it.
Yeah.
So I'm happy about that. I was so happy that it's my friend Lucy Reina. That's her name. She's the one that it was her idea. And I can't take credit for it. I mean, I can only take credit for the fact that I helped edit the majority of it.
Yeah.
And people responded well, and they were really happy with the editing that I did for them, because not everyone is a poet, and the majority weren't. They just wanted to voice it one way or another, and now they had an opportunity to voice it beyond their own surroundings.
Yeah.
This book. I mean, there's people in England that have the book. So again, I mean, Cuba. I had a guy from Cuba submit a poem.
From
Spain, Mexico, California, everywhere, all over. Here in Houston, we had several. I mean, a nice variety. So I'm really proud of that.
Yeah.
Really proud of that period.
It sounds like you've touched on in your books.
Yes.
You've touched on really emotional topics. Earlier, you were telling me about you asked activists to submit their story to you, and it was going to become part of an anthology.
It's another anthology that we've completed.
But you're writing that?
No.
Okay.
This is nothing I wrote. I only edited the book. Johnny Torres, who is the nephew of Joe Campos Torres, who was killed by the police in 1977. It's a very famous case.
It was almost 45 years ago when Houston was shocked by the death of Joe Campos Torres, a Vietnam veteran who was killed by Houston police. He was arrested, beaten, and tossed into Buffalo Bayou. The protests were going on then and through the years as his family sought justice. The initial outcome, 2 officers received a $1 fine and a 1-year probation. Let that sink in for a minute. 1 year probation, $1 fine. It's no wonder the Hispanic community and all who cared were upset and protesting. Federal prosecution led to a bit more of a penalty, but no one served more than 1 year. Justice is not the word to describe that series of events. But that's the name of the pavilion to be dedicated in Houston to his memory.
It is a formal and public apology 44 years overdue.
The city of Houston apologizing to the family of Joe Campos Torres, who was brutally beaten and murdered by several Houston police officers.
It was his death and the light sentences for the officers who were convicted that led to the infamous Moody riots a year later.
Johnny never knew him. He was born after, right? But Johnny became a Brown Beret. He's an activist. And he's written many stories, poems about his uncle and the struggles.
That he never met.
That he never met. But his mom was his uncle's sister, right? And so the whole family has been activists since then. His grandmother, Joe Campos Torres' mom.
What is a Brown Beret? I don't know.
You're not aware of Brown Beret? Okay, the Brown Beret are the equivalent to the Black Beret. Black Panthers, pardon me, right? The Black Panthers formed to help the black community.
What I gather from what's out there is that the Black Panthers are militant. Is that right?
Well, that's the story we were told.
That's what they're told.
Yeah.
Okay.
The Black Panthers originally started as a group to help their community overcome all of the racial discrimination that was that's part of the system. Lack of school education, supplies, health was a big issue. They started out helping their community, and it became militant only in the sense that they were having to defend themselves from the FBI and everyone else that was calling them militant terrorists. Right.
How did they defend themselves?
Wow. Primarily in having...
they had weapons?
Well, they carried weapons for self-protection.
Right, okay.
They didn't use the weapons against anyone. They had those weapons to protect themselves.
Right, which is your Second Amendment right.
Exactly, exactly. But when blacks do it or Hispanics do it or Mexicanos, whatever, Latinos, then we're terrorists. Right? We're a threat.
Right. Did the Brown Berets?
Brown Beret, no, there were some that carried, but no, they're not known for that. Brown Berets basically said, we're going to protest the way we're being treated as a people. Right? We're being discriminated against, again, the same as the Black Panthers in schools, in business, and in everyday life. Discrimination comes in many ways, in many forms to everyone. But the Brown Berets decided that they were going to help their raza, their people, through Chicanoism. Which is a whole different thing entirely. A Chicano is a person who considers himself a Chicano only because they have Hispanic or Mexican blood, and but they don't want to be identified as just straight U.S. citizens. In a lot of the forms that we filled out in schools in the past, they didn't give you a choice of you're Hispanic or whatever. It was you're either white or you're black. That's it. Or you're Indian. You're Native American, right? And other. The other was, what the hell is other?
Yeah.
But we had no choice but to call ourselves white on the paperwork,
Right.
whether it was school, or hospital form, whatever.
Well, it's gone back to that because
It's changed.
because
again.
I remember there was a period when I would see the Hispanic checkbox or
yeah.
Mexican American, and now it's white again. There's the box where white Hispanic is what it says.
Well, there's some that have no white Hispanic. It's just white.
Oh, okay.
That's it, just white.
Yeah, I've seen
I
that.
just did a form not too long ago. I can't recall right now offhand which one it was, but it asked that question, and then it asked, "Are you Pacific Islander, Native American?" But there's no Hispanics.
Yeah.
It's just you're white or you're black or you're
Yeah, I think I was
not
in-
Pacific Islander.
I think I was one year. I think it was my senior year in college when I asked because before the previous years I had seen Hispanic or I think it said Mexican American, and I asked them. I noticed the change. What do I check? Because I didn't. I asked the woman there. What do I check? Because I don't see this. And she said, "Oh, check with the white."
Yeah.
I was like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah,
So
so you comply. You comply
Yeah.
because you have no choice, really.
Yeah.
The ones that I did have a choice were the ones that said race and had a line, fill it in, right?
Yeah.
So I would always put human, and man, people would get so angry at me. Yeah, you're human, but you're
human
you're
race.
a race. Well, I'm a human race. I'm human. That's what I am. You're the one that wants to label me differently, but I'm a human just like you are.
Yeah.
Well, they used to piss people off at school, man. They used to get so angry.
Really?
U of H, man. I
At
got
U of H?
chewing out. Yeah, I got chewing out at U of H back in when was this? Oh, late 70s, early 80s. Yeah, a lady got really angry at me because I put on their human for the race. So anyway, going back to the activism, the militants, the book. The anthology is, like I said, we've got people who have been involved in militancy most of their lives, because of their communities, the lack of resources, all kinds of reasons. But the beauty of it is this, that most of the people that are submitters that submitted their poetry, in some cases stories, but all of them have a small bio. I think maybe one or two that don't have a bio. It's just a submission. But they all are speaking about their experiences, firsthand experiences. And some of these people are known. Most of them were behind the scenes, but very, very active. And because of these people that were behind the scenes, a lot of the things that got done was because of them. They were the ones actually working it, doing it, right? And they're unrecognized. They only herald those with the big names that the media wants to push.
It was a thankless job.
Definitely. A lot of them suffered for many ways. In many ways, suffered because of police harassment, city officials harassment. They suffered a lot.
What? They harass people? No way.
Yeah, right. No, and a lot of them suffered a lot, and they speak of it, and that's what I'm really happy about is that I can't say that we convinced them, we nudged them.
Yeah.
Right, nudged them into speaking for themselves. Because I had several that said, you know what, I heard too much. I have too many memories that are painful that I don't want. I told them, this is exactly what people need to hear. But anyway, the reason I brought up Johnny Torres is because he wanted to do this so badly. And I said, well, you know what we'll do is you be the curator. And you'll be a true curator because you're the one that's going to go out and solicit these stories from the activists. So people that you know, first let's start with the people that you know. And that's the way it began. Again, local. And boom, spread like wildfire. We're getting submissions from all over. So it's the book is called Voices of the Revolution, Volume 1. It's already out in publication. And we're just completing Volume 2. And Volume 1 has some very interesting people that you would know the names if you heard them.
Yeah.
And Volume 2 has now convinced those that did not submit for Volume 1, when they saw the results, they said, okay, I got to be part of this. I got to be part of this. So that was the incentive.
Yeah.
They were afraid to do it. They held back. And it happens a lot when you're talking to people. They, how many times do these people hear, well, we're going to do an interview of you, and then we're going to put it in the papers or whatever, and it never happens. They reveal themselves. They pour their heart out to these reporters or journalists, and then nothing happens, right?
And that's a whole other conversation,
disheartening.
because conventional news sources are not necessarily going to publish those kinds of stories.
Of course not.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course not. And most of these journalists and reporters are looking for feel-good stories. And the smaller, the better. Right? They don't want to hear any details. They don't want to see the ugliness of what's going on, because they don't want to reveal the fact that they're complicit.
Yeah.
Their silence is complicity. And they're reporters and journalists. So what is it that truly interests you? You're just looking for titillation. That's all.
Yeah.
You're not looking for real life experiences. And so, and people hesitate. We had several that said, I've already talked to so many, I've already told my story so many times. I said, yeah, but now you're going to be in a book. Now you're going to be published. And some of them were encouraged because of it. Others were afraid. But they submitted, and it was a lot of hard work for me as the editor to put it together, and it was tough for Johnny to convince these people, right? I mean, it took a lot for him to interview these people. Some of these interviews were done, recorded, that I had to transcribe, and that was extremely difficult. Sometimes people are speaking and they slur their words, and it's like, I've got to hear this 10 times until I have to understand the context of what they're saying first to attempt to figure out what it is that they said.
Yeah.
And you can't go back because they don't remember what they said. And if you play it to them, I don't know.
Yeah.
So
It's inaudible.
yeah, it's just garbled, right?
Yeah.
But so that was the difficult part. But once they started seeing the results, they were happy. They were happy. And we had some people that were just, no, I don't want to do it, And finally, when they were convinced to do it, they're happy with the results, and they're excited. And
This is, so they've seen the results. That means this
because
book
the
is
first
out?
volume's out.
The
right?
first volume's out already.
Yeah.
So there's going to be more volumes?
Yeah, we're, like I said, we're almost finishing. Actually, we have just finished volume 2. We just haven't gone to publication yet.
How many volumes are there going to be?
As many as we can get.
Really? And it's all going to be these stories of these activists?
Activists.
Okay.
We attempted to get Black Panthers and Young Lords. The Young Lords were a Puerto Rican group, a militant group as well, out of Chicago and New York.
I've never heard of them.
Yeah, well, this is the thing. Because it's militancy, if you ever heard about them, it was just a brief thing, these terrorists, that you hear about. These murdering, gun-toting criminals.
Because they had guns, the young
Well,
lords.
no, they didn't even have to have guns. It's just, it's just voice. You voice your opinions, and the powers that be don't like that.
What made them militant? Well, like militant.
Again, the circumstances that they and their families were being put through, lack of food, lack of education, lack of health care.
So it's because of their experiences that they're called militant, not because they were carrying weapons.
No, see that's you can say militant and it has nothing to do with
When I think-
firepower.
yeah, that's what I think of when I hear
Yeah, well,
militant.
see,
I think they're carrying assault
That's what
weapons.
prejudices people to not want to hear about it, not want to read about it. Oh, I don't want to hear about these militant protesters. And look at all the things that happened with Black Lives Matter. These people were being attacked, you know, and still dying at the hands of police or security guards, whoever, right, are killing them, and they're supposed to take it. You know, we have to stand up for it. You protest. Militancy. Protest is considered militancy. Pardon me.
Nowadays, yeah, they're making.
Pardon me.
Here in Houston, they made protesting a felony.
Excuse me. Exactly. You can't even gather downtown anymore without them surrounding you with horses and you know, come on, Billy Club and shit. Come on, man. This is crazy. This is insane.
Yeah.
You know, because they just want to shut you up. No, everything's rosy. Everything's great. You know, and then shut up. Get, you know, go hide in the corner that you came out of the hole you came out of.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, come on, man. Habeas corpus.
Yeah.
You know, it's gone. You know, and it just be escalated after 9/11. You know.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
It's not that I'm against them. I'm against the bad people that abuse their power.
Yeah.
You know, it comes in many forms.
Well, and fortunately, it starts at the top. If it's like that at the top, and the others ranks see that they're doing
They're
it,
the ones
they're-
verbalizing it.
exactly. Then the lower ranks think it's okay.
Well, of course.
That's just
Of course.
That's just how it is.
It doesn't start from the bottom.
Doesn't work. Yeah, it doesn't
There's
go
no-
bottom up.
Exactly, man. It's
No.
never worked that way.
No.
You know, so it's sad, but that's the nature. And unfortunately, they call everyone who opposes or says anything that point out anyone that points out what's going wrong, they're already considered a militant. You know, you're a protester, you're a militant. You know, you're a communist. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Here we go again with the labels.
Yeah. Well, that's part of the censorship.
Of course.
Censoring people. So calling, labeling them like militants, making protesting a felony, and there's censorship is going beyond that. I mean, you know, like in Canada, I think they're requiring podcasters that generate 10 million. I think it's 10 million or more to be
Followers?
$10 million. I think
Oh,
because
oh,
you
dollars
can,
now.
yeah,
Okay.
you can they generate revenue
I see.
to register as a media company or something like that. I don't know the details of the law, but that's a form of censorship.
Yeah, well, it's a scare tactic.
Yeah.
Also.
So now, so now they're basically under the purview of a government body that can
Regulation.
regulate
man.
their
It's
activities.
regulation.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I always hear, oh, less government, but they're building up the government. They're making more and more government.
Yeah.
You know, offices and stuff to control it. Come on, are you kidding me, man? Come on. I mean, George Orwell predicted everything that's happening and more, and there's still more of that coming. It's
Yeah.
getting worse.